What's going on, Broncos fans? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown. I'm Matthew Peterson. Today's show is kind of a giving back to you guys, the subscribers. We're doing a mailbag show, so I answered a bunch of questions you guys put down in a community post I did earlier. So if you ever want to be on a mailbag show, make sure you are subscribed. But let's get to the first question asked. This one comes in from Texas Tech legend Michael Crabtree. Cannot believe he watches the show. Get Russell Wilson. Well, that's not much of a question, but I think what you're really getting at is trade for Russell Wilson. What would that look like? Well, Russell Wilson not too long ago spoke about all the trade speculation. In fact, I did a video on this just yesterday, but Russell Wilson trade talk, I'm all about it because whatever can get number 3 in Denver, yeah, sign me up. So here's what Russell Wilson said on the trade rumors. This was back in December before his final game in Seattle for the season. I know for me personally, I hope it's not my last game in Seattle. But at the same time, I know it won't be my last game in the NFL. He would go on to say later on, a couple weeks later, my goal is to win more Super Bowls, and my plan is to win them here, being in Seattle. Well, that does not open up much room for having a trade happen. But if a trade were to happen, here's what I think it could look like roughly. Maybe I'm way off, but I think I'm kind of in the ballpark of it. It's hard to predict a blockbuster trade like this. But I've got the Broncos receiving Russell Wilson. Maybe Seattle tosses in like a 2023 7th rounder. But in order to get Russell Wilson, it costs you quite the haul. You got to give up a 2022, so this upcoming draft's first and second round pick. Now, they still have the Rams second and the Rams third round pick. Then 2023 first and third round pick along with some starter. I went with Lloyd Cushenberry. He's been a reliable starter on the offensive line, and it helps whoever the next quarterback is in Seattle with a little more improvement up front. Yeah, 2 firsts, a second, a third, and a starter for Russell Wilson. I get it. That sounds steep, but in the NFL and Broncos fans, we know this. Nothing else matters if you don't have a good quarterback. Denver had a top 5-3 defense this year, and that couldn't even get them in the playoffs. So you can argue and, gripe about giving up too much for Russell Wilson. If you don't have a quarterback, you're playing checkers when the rest of the league is playing chess. But let me let you guys be the GM here. You guys get to be George for a change. Put the GM hat on. Would you want the Broncos to trade for Russell Wilson? Is he your guy, or are you like, no, I don't want Russell Wilson. He's kind of weird, and he does huddles by himself when no one else is on the field. I'll pass on number 3. Give me a T for trade or P for pass. Question number 2 on today's show. J-Dov, 952 goes, should the Broncos hire Brian Flores or Dan Quinn or maybe even Nathaniel Hackett? So Dan Quinn has been the number 1 name buzzed around the Broncos head coaching gig. Haven't heard Brian Flores, so don't envision Brian Flores. He wasn't requested for an interview, so I just don't see it happening. And then as for Nathaniel Hackett, he's kind of the hottest name lately. And I think we got to kind of tone down just a little bit on the Hackett talk, only because the Broncos cannot interview a coach whose team is still playing in the playoffs this week. Now, the Packers have a bye, so George Payton, as I record right now, is probably talking things over with the quarterback coach in Green Bay, Luke Getsy, and then Nathaniel Hackett afterwards. But he's picked up some steam. Hackett has picked up some steam, no doubt about it. But I think it's a little bit like election night where they point to the county and they're like, only 30% of the votes in. It's still very early, and they haven't even interviewed all the candidates yet. So they talked to the Lions DC, Aaron Glenn a couple days ago, but let's wait till all those interviews are in. I'm still standing by. I think Quinn is going to be the favorite, but Hackett could make a run for it. But let me ask this to you guys. Who do you want the Broncos to hire? Who's your favorite guy? This is the pinned comment on today's show, so use a YouTube ad break as an opportunity to scroll on down and give me your responses as to who you think they should go out and hire. Just kind of going through these questions. Number 3 here. All Out Broncos, 1858. Appreciate you, All Out Broncos. I know you are a loyal subscriber, always commenting. He asked, what should the Broncos do with their 9th overall pick? Great question. I love mock drafts. I love draft season. I love some draft targets. So, the Broncos' biggest needs in this NFL draft, of course, quarterback. That is the number one biggest need. Everything else is like in 10th place behind it. But let's say the Broncos land a quarterback trade. Let's say they get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or someone else. Let's say they get that situation solved before the draft. Then they don't have a glaring need. They just have a couple spots that need to be touched up on and improved. I think linebacker and in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. But this is very dependent on the quarterback situation. The 9th overall pick very well could be spent on a quarterback. And I'll show you some possible QB draft targets if Denver does not land a huge blockbuster trade. But we'll also look at some other side. Let's say they do make a big blockbuster trade and they don't need to draft someone like Kenny Pickett in the first round. We'll look at that first. But also, if you want to be the next mailbag show, all you got to do is subscribe to the channel and maybe give me a new down below if you are new. That way, give you guys some love, give you a shout out on the show, welcome you to the channel. But if you want to be the next mailbag show, make sure you subscribe to the channel today and comment new. That way, I know who to look for when I'm pulling out questions next week. All right, let's switch gears. Let's get back to the point of topic here, which was draft targets, 9th overall pick. Let's go down the path that Denver gets Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, and they don't need to draft a quarterback. These are my top 5 guys. I like Nakobe Dean, very, very athletic linebacker. He can play from sideline to sideline, and it's just kind of the complete package. David Ojabo out of Michigan. Broncos need some help on the edge rush, and I think he could deliver that. Had a just blowout season this year for the Wolverines. Jordan Davis, the guy is just a monster. And the Broncos, Shelby Harris and Mike Purcell are nice. Draymond Jones, I like them, but I love Jordan Davis inside. He can really help out edge rushers by clogging up your center and the 2 guards. Devin Lloyd, you can go back and forth on him and Dean. I think Lloyd probably the better linebacker, but they're both phenomenal. And Denver, they were rattled with injuries at the linebacker spot. Now, that doesn't mean Baron Browning didn't step up and play great, but I think a first-round investment could be worth their while. And then I threw an offensive lineman, Charles Cross. Evan Neal is the top guy in this draft class, but I don't expect him to fall all the way to 9. Charles Cross, he could, maybe not, but the Broncos need help at that right tackle spot. Bobby Massey and Calvin Anderson and Cam Fleming, they're not the future on that side of the offensive line. Now let's switch gears and go, all right, so Denver doesn't get a quarterback. They got to draft one. Well, these are my 3 top quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh, Malik Willis out of Liberty, and Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. Here's what I'll say about these 3 quarterbacks. Maybe 2 to 3 of them are taken in the first round of this year's draft. If these guys were in last year's draft, none of them would be in the top 5. That's how weak this QB draft class is. I'd like to be proven wrong, but Pickett, I think just he's been at Pitt for so long, you got well, he's played in college football for a decade. We might as well reward him with a first-round pick. Malik Willis, super athletic, but who's Liberty playing that really makes you respect the defenders? And then Matt Corral does a lot of things very well, but he doesn't really stand out anywhere. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Drew Lock, which hasn't gone to plan. But who do you want the Broncos to draft? Let me know. Give me your name prediction down below. Who you want Denver to get with that 9th overall pick. We'll get on to our next question in just a moment. But look at this great deal going on at Fanatics. You don't get 1 shirt. You get 2 shirts, 25% off. That's like $37 over at Fanatics. And all you got to do is go to chatsports.com/Broncos t-shirt. Hook you up with a retro short sleeve t-shirt and then a long sleeve tee as well. Get 2 shirts for the price of 1 and 25% off. It's that link right there. I have to use that. It's also in the comments and the description of today's video. Moving on to our next question, coming in from Hugo Lundenberg, maybe across the pond with that Chelsea sticker. But he asked, if you got to pick one, should the Broncos re-sign Melvin Gordon or A.J. Johnson? Good question, Hugo. Let's kind of compare the two. Let's look at their resumes stacked up next to one another. A.J. Johnson started 6 games this year at linebacker for Denver before going down with that season-ending pec injury. The year before, he started all 16 games. And this is one of those kind of feel-good stories, kind of rised up the ranks, former undrafted guy out of Tennessee. Could get a discount after the injury if you're Denver. I'm guessing Johnson doesn't want to try and go to a new team and start all over after finally earning a starting role in Denver. So my guess is he'd like to continue to play with the Broncos. Plus, Denver needs a lot of help at that linebacker spot. Meanwhile, Melvin Gordon, he is entering the 8th year of his career. That's a long time for running backs in this day and age in football. I don't envision him coming back to the Broncos. Denver just drafted Javonte Williams in the 2nd round last year with an idea of him being the future at running back, not to split carries for his first couple of years in the league. Now, Gordon proved me wrong. I didn't think he'd be a nearly 1,000-yard rusher and 8 touchdowns. I mean, if Gordon doesn't miss that game against the Chiefs, maybe he gets to 1K, but Gordon had a great year. I bet he'll find a home. There'll be another team that wants to pick up a veteran workhorse back. But let me know. If you had to pick one to re-sign, would you rather have A.J. Johnson? Would you rather have Melvin Gordon? I'll give you my opinion in just a moment, but get your votes in down below who you'd rather see Denver re-sign in free agency. I go A.J. Johnson. A.J. Johnson's got more left in the tank. You need help at running back. You're pretty good at running back with Javonte Williams. Plus, he went to my alma mater, Tennessee, so shout out to you, A.J. Johnson. I would love to see him return to the Broncos next season. Guys, if you want to get on future mailbags, make sure you subscribe. It's the only way I can get you on. Make sure you hit that big red button, join the channel, and then when I put out a mailbag call, respond below, and that way you can be one of the guests here on the show. So, going into our final question of the show. Yep, coming from Luis Angel Prado. I hope I said that right. Should the Broncos search for a potential starter at edge or develop Malik Reed and Jonathan Cooper with Chubb? Great question, because you didn't, for a while there, you had no big good edge presence with Von Miller. Then Von kind of fell off. Then Von got traded. Then you're like, what are we going to do? And then out of nowhere, Jonathan Cooper starts playing great. But here are some free agent edge rushers that Denver could go after in free agency. This has a list with one big name on it, Von Miller, who's with the Rams right now, but he's going to hit free agency after this year. And let's say Denver lands Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson in a trade, in a blockbuster trade. And Miller's like, yeah, let me go back to my favorite franchise and try to win a Super Bowl again with another Hall of Fame quarterback. So I'm all in on the idea of Von Miller potentially returning. Other names there, some older guys there. Clowney had a good year at the Browns, but uncertain what his future is. And you got Jones and Dante Fowler Jr.'s had up and down in his career. He's on his third team already. Calais Campbell, he's getting pretty up there in the age column. I bet if he doesn't return to Baltimore, he'll probably just want to retire. But let me ask this question to you guys. Would you want Von Miller back on the Broncos? Would you want to see 58 back in orange and blue? Or you think, you know what, let's close the yearbook? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Also, make sure you subscribe, like I said, to get on future mailbags. But I'd love to see Von Miller back on the Broncos. If the Broncos make a huge blockbuster trade, why not run it back with the old gang? Why not bring Von back on a team-friendly deal and win another Super Bowl and watch Von Miller go to the Super Bowl and make another huge sack and to potentially win the game? So hopefully that happens. We're going to catch you guys later here on the channel. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I wish I could be saying go Broncos, so go against the Raiders and the Chiefs.